all ages here. Welcome to the Wrestling Den. I'm your host, as always, Macho Man Ricky Savage. Yeah, with my co-host,
Nick the Prick.
No. We're turning a new leaf. Nikolai Volkov. Yeah.
Yeah, Nikolai.
Nikolai Jerkov. Yeah.
There it is. That's it.
We are your premier source of all things wrestling. Yeah, past, present, and future. That's right. The time has come. Welcome to episode 9. We are here.
9.
We are here live, baby, at 7:00 p.m. Eastern.
We made it.
We
made it to the big time. On time.
We made it on time. We got a lot to talk about tonight, which is great because we have a lot of time to talk about it. So we will have the wrestling's WWE's greatest 50 tag teams of somebody's
10
time.
10 to 1. So yeah,
10 to 1.
Somebody made that list.
And we will also have a lot of good things coming up as well to talk about all around the world of wrestling. So I will say one of the things I do want to jump into is that I looked up for like this day in wrestling to find out what was going on. And it turns out I had like a July 5th posting. So in that July 5th posting, though, was talking about the Steiner brothers. And I was like, oh, man, I get to talk about the Steiner brothers again? Lovely, dude. And then turns out, wrong date. Don't worry about them. But
it's your show, though, Rick. You can talk about the Steiner brothers all you want.
It's our show, baby.
Steiner Mania could run wild.
They could run wild, or they could run wild, which they did in that match.
They did.
But I already forgot who they faced. That's the sad part about that. But on another note, we did talk about in the 50 greatest tag teams. What was it? I already forgot their names. Dang it. Hold on. Let me go back to the list. I'm looking at the list right now. No. It was the Blackjacks. I watched.
Oh, yeah.
Just me being me. I'm watching. It was the best of the paparazzi productions with Kevin Nash, and they were doing like the pogo stick challenge and all that. Because I was watching, Jay Lethal and his Black Machismo gimmick, and I'm just getting into the vibes here. It all started downhill with Ric Flair and Jay Lethal going at it, and then I just took off to a whole nother world. But I noticed something that I didn't notice before watching that. Kevin Nash is talking to Jay Lethal back, like, but paparazzi production style, singing Amazing Grace, and then he became Black Machismo. The second episode they did with Black Machismo, Kevin Nash is talking to him and acting like he's black, and Jay Lethal, this is the second time he's reminding Kevin Nash, he's like, you're not black, but Kevin Nash just goes with it, and one of the things he says is he brings up Blackjacks. He brings up Mulligan.
Oh, great. Okay.
He calls him a Mulligan. He says Blackjack Mulligan. I was like, where was this when we were going over the Blackjacks? Like, where was this?
It's all related, man. It's all connected. It's like it's one big unit. The number 23 and all that shit.
Swear jar.
What?
Ooh.
No, I said all that ish.
I don't know. If we had a referee here tonight, we'd be able to tell for sure, but that was like foot on the ropes.
No
watching
DQ.
you.
No DQ. Right?
Anyways, Miss Liz is here with me as always, yeah. I'm surprised that this guy has a title belt, by the way. He has an undisputed title belt, and yet he refuses to bring it.
I wonder why. I'm not gonna take all the belts out until I have like 4 or 5 of them, like Kenny Omega, and then I'll wear them all at the same time.
Ultimate Dragon, dude. You gotta get that Ultimate Dragon drip.
That's one of the first guys I ever saw with like multiple titles like that. Was Ultimate Dragon.
I think that's anybody that was like a wrestling fan in the 90s seeing Ultimate Dragon.
Like, whoa, this guy's awesome, right? You just think like he's got all those belts and not a single one to hold up his pants.
That was good, dude. Ultimate Dragon. I gotta see this. I gotta see how many belts he had. How many belts did he tote to the ring?
Clickety clack, clack, clack.
That's that mechanical. Oh, it was the J Crown. So it's funny that we're mentioning that because on this day in history, one of the things that did happen, just jumping right into that because this is kind of cool that we're talking about, so might as well. Where was it? It wasn't Noah. They did the J Crown tournament, and it was the Great Sasuke defeated Ultimo Dragon to win the J Crown tournament. And with it, a total of 8 junior heavyweight championships. That's what it was. It was the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship, the NWA World Heavyweight Welterweight Championship. Sorry, He didn't get the big gold, but he got some of it. War International Junior Heavyweight Championship, UWA World Junior Light Heavyweight Championship, WWE, basically titles that we don't know anything about or care about, but WWA World Junior Light Heavyweight Championships, British Commonwealth Junior Light Heavyweight Championship, and then, of course...
You better be careful. The British Commonwealth fans are going to come after you.
I didn't say anything about the British, though. I was talking about the UWA, and if they are part of the Britain, the UK factor, then I'm sorry, governor, but nobody cares about your belt. Anyways, the one belt that we all know about and should care about is the light heavyweight title from the WWF. That was one of the belts that he had lost to Great Sasuke, and Great Sasuke actually ended up getting rushed to the hospital after this match because he fractured his skull. So he won all these belts from Ultimo Dragon. Didn't get to successfully defend any of them. He does his first match back after fracturing his skull, and he loses them all. And the guy, yeah, it bites the big one, dude. But he what was it? WWF wanted the light heavyweight title back. He lost it to somebody, so the other guy that won the belts ended up basically just taking all the belts and giving them back to their promotions respectfully, and he kept the IWGP belt. That's the only belt that he held on to.
So Rick.
So Nick.
So now that we've concluded our business with the Ultimate Dragon and all of his belts, do you want to talk about more current events? Some stuff that I know people are
chomping at the bit.
Pretty excited about.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We talked about last week, you can't just give them the main event right off the bat, baby. You gotta give them a nice little draw.
You slow rolling everybody.
I'm slow rolling everybody, dude. We got time. There's no need to rush this.
So you're saying sometime in the next hour and 20 minutes we're gonna discuss Wyndham Rotunda.
No, we're going to need a full 2 hours for that.
You're going to come back around to what I meant when I said that, and you're going to go, oh, that's who Wyndham Rotunda is.
Clickety-clack, Rotunda. Football. Oh, wow. All right. Good one. I didn't know, guys. In case
we got George Samuel Dominguez in the chat. He's watching us rather than the last few minutes of the Yankees pregame. What's up with that?
I'm sorry, George.
I just want it's the newest up and coming hottest podcast this side of the whatever
Facebook has seen. Why would you even want to watch a Yankees game when you can watch this right here? This is what you need. This is the good stuff right here. Boom. We're taking over. Baseball, at least. We're taking
over.
I thought you were going to wear the BWO. That's why I wore the NWO today. I thought we were. This is how you start off
a 50 BWO last week.
So just because you have the BWO doesn't mean you can't throw it in the laundry. And
I don't even like wrestling.
He does it. He told me too. So George, I appreciate you watching again, bud. Thank you. This time you're live.
Doesn't like current wrestling or didn't like wrestling at any point. That's the real question, because I think we all love wrestling in the late 90s, but.
I mean, it
must see TV.
It had a different flair back then, if you will.
Is that a pun?
Well, yes, it was.
I see. So, are we gonna talk about Wyndham Rotunda, aka
Bray Wyatt?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can we talk about the football player?
Enjoy the Yankees.
Back to the Yankees. George, thank you for joining us, though. I will talk to you at work about this in full great detail. So, Wyndham Rotunda gets released by the WWE, and it's one of the biggest upsets that's been going around Twitter and just about anywhere on social media for the last week now. Most of it being...
Say it with me, though, Rick, and we're going to... This is, all...
Thank you, George.
Credit goes to Jim Cornette when I say this, but say it with me. Woo! How can we miss you if you won't go away?
It's true.
So I'm excited to see kind of if he was to jump ship over to AEW, if a fresh start would suit him. If maybe, let's see if the creative juices were the WWE machine, or if it was actually Bray Wyatt or whatever he's going to go by going forward here.
What if
you know,
well,
I'd be interested to see.
I don't know if they have officially captured rights of the Fiend, like if it was like WWE like had already
I'm sure
locked
that
in.
they have the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Husky Harris.
Yeah, but
all of
he might not be the Fiend, maybe, but like some kind of, we call him the friend or whatever, still wearing the same mask, the villain, the vigilante.
Oh, you're saying the likeness rights to the mask itself?
Yeah,
all they got to do is just come up with another one. And honestly, let him come back and be, the Cult of Wyndham or something. You could do anything.
What if
if he's charismatic enough to carry it, I believe.
What if he like takes over the Dark Order? So this is one of my theories. So what if the Dark Order? Eric Rowan's there. Braun Strowman, there was speculation that maybe he would, but I know with Braun Strowman, he talked about, I'm leaving the WWE. That's it for me. Like, I'm not doing wrestling anymore. But never say never in the wrestling world. So Braun Strowman, let's just say, because it's going to be one of those things we're going to talk about. What if Braun Strowman decides, you know what, maybe I will try out AEW? How would you feel about the Wyatt family paying no better tribute to Brody Lee than to take over the Dark Order? And instead of it being the Wyatt family.
Hey, you know what? Unlike most things in wrestling now, it would make sense.
It would make sense, dude.
I would. I'd be on board with that. And he could come in and put some legitimacy behind it. He's charismatic. I think a lot of those ideas, if you asked me, honestly, I think a lot of it was Bray Wyatt and the WWE was getting on board with it. And a lot of things that got him over, I think, was just based on his character and who he was. Again, in the ring, and that's the thing with a character like that. If the character's compelling enough, the in-ring stuff, he doesn't have to be the greatest wrestler of all time. You just got to be serviceable. You just got to have, do things that lean into your gimmick. And I think he can do that and bring an interesting thing over to AEW and put some WWE fans' eyes on that product. To me, I think that can only be a good thing. But it's really funny to me that we every time someone gets released by the WWE, the first thing that happens now is they go, "Oh, well, what's it going to be like over in AEW?" When
it's the first
not
reaction.
A foregone, but it's not a foregone conclusion all the time. I don't think it's
picked up some WWE guys too as well. Like, people think that AEW is going to be the only prospect for people because it's the national brand that's out there. That and as much as you want to say competition, like Chris Jericho just said like the other day that he doesn't see it as a competition. But whether he says it or not, like as a fan, you're going to see it as a competition. And I think that's the thing that like really kind of sours the note is that fans nowadays, the way that they're treating everything, it's always what I see on Twitter back and forth is some fans going to be like, I'm going to be the first guy to tell you right now that AEW Dynamite last night was doing like 700,000 views. And then, what happened on NXT? 645, haha, pretty close. And then it's just that back and forth thing that really, like, I think that's why wrestlers in general.
They've been trading the same 50,000 viewers for a year and a half.
Congratulations, man. That's why I was glad nobody was doing Twitter around the 84 weeks, okay, in WCW and WWE, because if somebody was out there every week posting in and out about how WCW was doing this in the ratings and that, like, we get it, dude, okay? But again, it was 84 weeks for a reason, because you can go 84 weeks. AEW could go 84 weeks, just slam and WWE again.
What you're saying is like, call me when something changes, right? Like, yeah.
And this is the thing. So that Vince doesn't fear AEW, he fears ratings. So the moment that the ratings start going under and he sees that and they become a legitimate threat, guess what happens? You motivate the man. You poke the bear.
What's different now with the Vince McMahon, the modern Vince McMahon, is that ratings, it's not about that anymore. It's honestly about like shares and stockholders and maneuvering the company in a place where the content is there, whether it be on the network or Peacock or whatever. Because that's why they created the network. They created the network to get enough of a subscriber base to be able to sell the rights to that to a bigger company.
And to change history as well.
Right. And well, exactly, yeah, to kind of pave over
who's
some
Chris,
of those old roads.
Who's Chris Benoit? Like,
right, never.
Actually, they do show though in Peacock, like they show Chris Benoit. I mean, they're not going to outright mention him.
Can't for them to go through and systematically silhouette him as a person or cut all of his matches out. There's just stuff that you couldn't do it with. He was such an integral part of so many things that you can't just eliminate him from history.
You can't. And as much as it sucks, and we all get it, it's like beating a dead horse, though, no matter how you look at it. Like, oh, there's people that say he should be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I'm not going to argue that one. I'm not going to say yes or no to that. As a wrestler, should he be in the Hall of Fame?
Hall of Fame, isn't he?
True, but they should redact that. They should redact it. That's
no. It's just based on your body of work. It's based on what you did between the ropes. It's like I get it.
It's like a Michael Vick, OJ Simpson situation.
Is he in the NFL like Hall of Fame?
No, but Wyndham Rotunda is.
There you go.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I just think that you have to base it on that and what happens in personal lives, and especially with Chris Benoit, some of that stuff, and you don't want to absolve a murderer or anything like that, but a lot of that stuff was mental, and a lot of it wasn't.
I feel like though if you put him in the Hall of Fame, it's not a matter of absolve. I don't think it absolves what he did. I think it's just a matter of just showing what he did in the wrestling world, keeping the two separate in terms of respect the talent, hate the man.
Right, and it's just a touchy subject. It just really is. It's such a hard thing to deal with. And the big thing with Benoit is that it's not what he did specifically; it's that he did it. Then they had a episode of Raw or SmackDown, whatever it was, celebrating Chris Benoit, and then it came out that it was much darker than it first appeared. They thought they were all murdered first by someone else.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, remembering Chris Benoit and this and that, and everyone's teary eyed, and then post-mortem, Chris Benoit made Vince McMahon look stupid.
How do you forget someone who won't go away?
Right.
I have one thing by Finger 11 on my old iPod, and let me tell you, I will not forget. Okay, I will not forget, because every time that song comes on, the only thing I think of is that heartwarming Raw where it's like everybody was paying their respects, and then all of a sudden it was like the next day, flip of the switch. Once everybody found out what was happening, it was kind of one of the biggest cover-ups I've ever seen, besides like the Montreal Screwjob for like the longest time, dude. Like they would just like, was it just like when Hawk goes Hawk in Botchamania and he backs up out of the interview? Mm-hmm. That's what WWE did the moment that they found out what was really going on. It was like, and then they took him out.
Yikes, dude! They realized like we're live, Hal. Like that's just.
But I don't blame them for that either, because if you think about it, like, what would you do as a company? Like, you're not going to take a stance. That's what you're gonna do. Like, basically, the respects were given that night. If you want to look anywhere towards a Hall of Fame, that's where the respect was given that night when they did the promo, like the packages and stuff, like remembering him. Like that's what you're gonna. You might as well just take that as it is, because they could have just taken that episode off the air and never showed it, but they did. Like I think they. Mm-hmm. Do they still have? I think they may have pulled it now on Peacock and stuff like that. It might be pulled. I don't know.
I bet you that's a tough ask to be able to.
When I get there, I'll let you know if I see it or not. Right. Because I'm watching. I'm gonna be watching from basically like maybe 85 up, some point, because I want to watch the wars in like full, kind of just get a fresh perspective on things, and just because like I was a kid when I was watching that, you know what I mean? And then it's like I never really got to go back and revisit.
Right, for sure. No, there's stuff that you miss as a wrestling fan because there's no way to have your eyes on it every week, consistently, especially stuff that happened before you watch wrestling. That's why we should be grateful to services like Peacock, and even the network. You're just able to find it all in one place to revisit, some of this stuff. So with that in mind, circling back to our original point with Bray Wyatt, Rotunda, The Fiend. I just genuinely think, he can add an interesting dynamic to AEW if he was to come in and do a Dark Order thing and maybe legitimize it, bring it back to, something a little more serious.
If he does Dark Order, so this is my question to you then. If he were to do this route, and this is just a hypothetical, obviously, we don't know what his plans are. He could be going to Impact for all I know. He could be going to ICW in the UK. Like he could be going somewhere we wouldn't expect. But let's just say, for shirts and goggles here, that he goes to AEW, right? And and maybe the Dark Order thing, either he goes against them or joining them would be the perfect thing, especially again reuniting Eric Rowan. If Braun Strowman joins AEW as well, that's another hypothetical. If he joins, reuniting him, and then obviously Bray Wyatt. Even if Braun Strowman's not a part of the picture, just having Eric Rowan and having Bray Wyatt in that same ring, in a different ring together, to kind of I just think it's the perfect move. Just because Brody Lee was the leader and now that he's gone, it just makes sense. But let me ask you, what's that mean for Adam Page then?
I can see.
What's that mean for Adam Page? If the Dark Order takes on Bray Wyatt and he takes over, right now what they've been doing is that there's been a slow build in the AEW ever since the very first episode. Like when he lost the title to Chris Jericho, basically Adam Page's character from that point on, basically he just kind of showed like the de-evolution of his character. Like he was a part of the Elite, but then like they would show him like drinking, and then when he did like the football field match, like it's funny because he runs in on a horse and he's going around as the anti-hero, but then like he ends up at the bar and it's a comedic relief thing, but you can see on his face the character showing the emotions of what it means. Like he lost the opportunity to win the AEW World title, like, first aired match. So up until that point, now you're talking how long has AEW been out? 2 years?
A
year? Yeah.
It's
so
been a
like
while. Two or three.
Yeah, I would say that's crazy to say to me because like that's the thing. I haven't watched much AEW in that time, but if they've had about like 2 years out already, that just goes to show how much they've done in the time that it's taken me. And as a fan, I still see them as new. But that's just how things go. Like going through the pandemic, that's what it was. They started up and then they had the pandemic, so then they lost the crowd, and it's like then they got Matt Hardy and they did all this stuff. So what I'm getting at is that.
Yeah,
they're building up Adam Page to take on Kenny Omega. They've already just showed that with that match he did that sick like backwards pile driver or whatever. Like I just know as the character being in the Dark Order, like the Elite have like brought him down, and he got to a point where he didn't believe in himself, and then the story's dictating that now the Dark Order's helped trying to rise him back up and get him to that point, and then obviously he has this match with Kenny Omega for the title, this opportunity, but. In this situation with the Dark Order, if Bray Wyatt would come in and interrupt that and say he would take over in some kind of way, the perfect thing that Adam Page could do is leave the Dark Order completely. And they've already done with, so what is it? They got Tully Blanchard, they got Arn Anderson, and they got J.J. Dillon. And they did this thing where the FTR were in the ring, Sean Spears comes out and saves them, and J.J. Dillon's in the ring, and Tully and was it Tully and Anderson that came out and they threw up the sign and they kind of like signaled out the Four Horsemen, like this would be the new Four Horsemen or whatever. I would say this is what I see from that. I don't want to see Sean Spears anywhere near that. If they were to do a Four Horsemen in AEW, I wouldn't want to see Sean Spears anywhere near that. But FTR, absolutely, it reminds me of the Anderson brothers, dude. Like it makes perfect sense for these guys, and even like Tully, like. FTR have like a little bit of each of those enforcer type characters that were in the original Four Horsemen. And then you have another guy who just asked for his contract release, and that was Ric Flair.
Mm-hmm.
And damn well.
Maybe he saw the writing on the wall, and maybe he saw bright future coming in and promoting Sean Spears, so he was going to jump over to AEW.
No,
I'm with you on that. If you're going to do something, it was kind of like when he gave The Miz he gave him his permission or like his blessing to use the figure 4, and we were all just like like who cares, like
yeah.
I see. So if they're going to do something that's going to pay homage to the Four Horsemen, some kind of revival, for lack of a better term, then what you could do is like you'd have to do FTR, you'd have to do, and then have Tully and Arn and even Rick there to create that, like to legitimize it a bit. That'd be very interesting dynamic. That was going to lead us into talking about Ric Flair's release. This is another one that's like not earth shaking, it's not really that big of a thing. Ric Flair's jumped around. He's been in TNA. He's been back in the WWE. He's like, when the time calls for it, they'll give him a ring, and Rick will come in to do something, with Charlotte, or do something Hall of Fame wise, as they give him his 12.
Well, I mean, if they could get Chris Jericho on the Broken Skull podcast, like you're talking at this point, it's not really a full-fledged competition. The only ones that are making a competition are the fans. Each company is just trying to do their own separate thing, and whether or not they see the other as competition, neither one's going to admit that they are, because they both are just trying to focus on their own things.
Rick, the fans want to relive the past, as well. That's why they're trying to make it a war. Why they're trying to make it a thing. Even though I think everyone is fully aware that the WWE has such a foothold in wrestling now, as opposed to even in the late 90s or mid 90s when they were floundering and stuff. It's so much different now. So yeah, AEW can come in, and I'm all for competition and stuff like that. And I really hope they give us an alternative that puts a lot of eyes on it. And CM Punk comes in, and Bray Wyatt comes in, Bryan Danielson, what have you. My concern, though, with that is that, we're gonna hit this wall where I don't know if AEW has enough experience to really put these people over the way that's necessary so they could be taken seriously. Wrestling needs to be taken seriously. And so even if CM Punk comes in and has this really intricate storyline where, an in-depth storyline with Kenny Omega or whoever else, and you go, wow, this is captivating, this is great, but it's shared on the same, broadcast is some weird, silly, slapsticky stuff, it takes the piss out of it, to an extent. So my concern is that especially with Bray Wyatt, you said, okay, we'll bring him in. He could be, leader of the Dark Order or whatever. And it's not to say that in the Attitude Era and things like that, there wasn't silly stuff, but it was to a minimum, and it was always undercard guys. And I don't think it detracted from how serious we took Stone Cold Steve Austin, when Val Venus was getting the choppy, and it's on the same broadcast as Stone Cold title defense or something. I don't think it really made a difference or changed anything that much or delegitimized it. But my concern is when they're trying to do this alternative WWE and there is some silly stuff on there, I just hope that they keep
like some of those people's theme songs.
Right. I just hope that they keep the guys that we want to take serious separate from the silliness. Like when Sting's out there trading half-hearted kicks with Orange Cassidy, it's great. It's a great gif, but I'm just like, Sting, go home. You ain't got nothing to prove. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like they use these older guys to be there to kind of help, get the new guys into some pretty big storylines. Like that, like Sting's presence being there, wearing the t-shirt, because like he's gonna have to keep that t-shirt on. Like these guys are there to like, oh, it's cool. Darby Allin's the guy with the face paint. Well, that reminds me of Sting, and guess what? Sting's in AEW, and he's his mentor. Like it's cool because it's giving people a reason to care about Darby Allin. But other than that, like just running into Orange Cassidy and doing these fake kick trade-offs, I personally, I like that. That's a personal thing to me, is that it's just seeing it is that Sting, as somebody who's been wrestling for many, many years, just like Chris Jericho and like Undertaker, like he's had a lucrative career. He's been around since the 80s. Here's a guy who has reformed himself in so many ways. And to me, honestly, this feels like it's like TNA, kind of like an extension of his TNA into his WWE character. Like how after the point of like the Crow Sting, and then he just tried different things with his face paint. Like, though he was experimental, I feel like it kind of ruined like the Sting character for me in terms of the Crow Sting. Like at that point, you're doing different face paints, but he's mixing it up and he's doing his own thing, so I can't fault Sting for that. But Sting being in AEW and then willing to do these unserious things, like that guy by any means is a professional wrestler. So if he's giving his blessing to sit there and be like, yeah, I can just do some fake kicks with this guy and then do it and just be serious, like looking as he's doing it, and it's funny, just some comedic relief. Like it challenges people like Jim Cornette who say, I don't want to see this kind of stuff in a wrestling ring. Like that's the things that about Jim Cornette. Like he thinks he knows it all in the terms of, yeah, it is a little bit disrespectful. If you look at the sport itself, like it's disrespecting the sport because it's making a joke of it. It's making a mockery of it. And we already put that kind of stuff. Like people say, oh, wrestling's fake, and then you try to defend it. But then when you try to defend a fake thing like wrestling, like entertainment, it's entertainment, But when you try to defend it, and then it's like, I think that's what Jim Cornette meant when he said like it disrespects the sport, is that when you do stuff like this, like it was mostly that was about Joey Ryan and like using his penis as a thing, and like obviously like it rubbed Cornette the wrong way, so that's why he was so adamant about talking about this. But it disrespects the sport in the sense that when somebody says wrestling's fake, and it's hard for you to say no, it's not, without saying, well, wait a second, you got Joey Ryan over here, dick flipping people, and they're selling it. So
no, and it did remind me, like when Sting was delivering those kicks, it's less or it's more palatable than watching Mick Foley,
I agree, Ron
wrestling
Joey.
legend, take the dick spot, like you're saying. You know what I mean? I'd rather see this, kind of playful thing where Sting and this person are like kicking back and forth than Mick Foley grabbing Joey Ryan's dick. Like,
But I mean, like WWE did it like with DX and stuff, and that's like kind of thing. Like this comedic relief is what makes it again entertainment. Like to back up on the other side of the spectrum, it's sports entertainment. That's what we're watching now. It's no longer like the world of wrestling. Like we're not watching an Olympic sport. We're not watching like the Japanese, like how the Japanese style of wrestling is more on the traditional side. So stuff like that is still alive to this day. If you want to see serious wrestling with no gimmicky stuff or anything like that, go watch like British strong style. Or go watch Japanese wrestling.
But you say that, but then there's like a dude wrestling a ladder in a hardcore match,
and even in Japan,
Kenny Omega against the blow up doll or the Invisible Man.
Well, listen, Al Snow putting himself through a table and Hardcore Holly coming out going like WTF.
See, with Al Snow, his gimmick was that he was unhinged and he had a screw loose. So guy moonsaults himself through a table. It's stupid, but it's a throw. It's an underneath thing. You can't say in the same
him.
Kenny Omega
was wrestling an invisible person.
Hold on, PW Insider. Kenny Omega is the greatest wrestler. And then he's out here doing stupid things like, what is that? Don Callis is 69 me or whatever. It's like, okay, you know what I'm saying? You can be silly and be the top guy and stuff, but you don't want to make wrestling farcical. You do not want to make a joke out of it, because then if they see you not taking it seriously, then the fans don't have to take it seriously either. And how are we ever supposed to get behind a serious storyline and be captivated and be motivated to watch every week when we see these guys circle jerking in the ring and doing silly stuff? That's all. And that's not to say they're not athletic, they're not talented or any of those other things. I'm just saying, in your pursuit of trying to be funny, what you perceive as funny or meme worthy or whatever,
botchamania worthy.
Seriously, you just don't want to lose. You don't want to look like you're trying too hard to be something you're not, and you don't want to take the piss out of your product, whereas nobody's going to take it seriously. Do you think that Stone Cold Steve Austin would be caught dead in his prime wrestling the Invisible Man?
Yes, because he's better than the average man that has been put in front of us in front of a camera. I think that's
he just
to
wouldn't
me.
do it.
Stone Cold wouldn't even get in the ring anyways, because he's the only smartest man alive to not get back in the ring after WrestleMania 19. Like, he knew when to call it quits and stay out of the ring, and that's why I respect him the most. Like,
and in the chat here too, about comedy and wrestling being great when it's not forced. That's my issue with that too, is when you're trying to be meme worthy or gif worthy. It is, you can see it's a little heavy handed. You can see that it's not naturally, like Stone Cold, when they do that stupid thing where Stone Cold buys cowboy hats for him and Vince McMahon, and then he gets
Kurt shows up with the small one. Yeah,
that's just funny to me. When Austin's spraying Shane and The Rock and Vince with the beer truck hose, and Vince is on the ground flopping like a fish, that's funny to me. Okay. The visual is just funny, and it makes sense to the character to an extent, because in the weeks prior to that, he's driving a Zamboni to the ring. He's doing a flying clothesline. He's filling Vince's Corvette with cement. That guy. So him driving vehicles to the ring,
going to the hospital, and him with a bedpan.
Oh, the bedpan. It's funny because you get like
that's deadpan comedy right there.
Right. Bedpan, deadpan.
Yeah.
And so, yes, does wrestling have stupid stuff like that? Absolutely. Wrestling is.
Hey, some things are very clever, like a dance off in the ring.
Sort of. The context matters, and if it's underneath stuff, and if it's meant, when it's go time and it's go time, then
for you, Jesse.
and you can take yourself seriously. It just can't always be that way. And I guess that's what they're going at with Kenny Omega, that his wrestling's going to do the talking, because he's not really doing like he's not doing the worm, he's not doing the big wiggle, he's not doing, you know what I'm saying? Even The Rock, you can say, oh, The Rock is the people's elbow, which is one of the most comedic wrestling spots of all time, but he's one of the most over people, and that's why it worked. Is because The Rock is he could sell you anything, he could do anything, and you would just laugh at it because he owns it, and then he takes himself seriously. And when the time comes, you have a 5-star classic, and it's not a joke. So I guess you have to have a balance. It can't always be dead serious, but it also can't always be silly.
I mean, but I feel like Orange Cassidy, like there's your silly. I love Orange Cassidy. To me, if you ask me who's my favorite AEW guy right now, like he's one of them. And this is when I started watching, was that I fell in love with the character because I immediately was grabbing to somebody that I already knew who they were, because he's done Chikara. Like he's been wrestling since like 2006. Like he's a great wrestler. I know he's a great wrestler because I've seen him, and a different character.
Great wrestler or entertaining wrestler? Bret Hart's a great wrestler.
No. He can wrestle. He can wrestle. Like that's the thing. Orange Cassidy knows how to wrestle, and he can be technical, but that's the thing. His gimmick right now overshadows that, because that's what got him over. Because when he just seriously wrestled, it was just like, okay, here's another guy out of many people that were brought up this way into this kind of like traditional, like bringing back the old school sports. I'm a wrestler, I'm not an entertainer type deal. Like, guys that can really go, but just don't have any character to them, and that's the thing. Orange Cassidy needed a character. So when he put on the sunglasses and he started putting the hands in the pockets, like he was like in 1988's They Live. Like, or being Marty McFly in Back to the Future. Because guess what? When it was in the 80s and you had your hands in the pockets, it was cool. One hand meant I'm just chilling. Don't mess with me. The vibe is right. 2 hands meant, all right, now you're going to get it. Thumbs in the pockets. Now it's on. Like, he's coming.
To the point in the chat, too, it can have the reverse effect. Sometimes you do need a character to get over. You can be the greatest wrestler of all time. And like guys like Bret Hart, being the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, the excellence of execution was the gimmick. The fact that he was the man when it came to what happens between the ropes, to me, that's part of a gimmick. Like the Hitman, you're like, well, the Hitman, like what is he, an actual legitimate Hitman? No, he's the shit man. No, it's just a nickname that he goes by because everything he does is crisp and to the point, and like, to me, that works. The Crippler, Chris Benoit, you know what I'm saying, where he can stretch you and he can beat you down and do this, and so that's a gimmick, toothless aggression and BS like that. But then you had stuff like they're saying in the chat, like Eugene, where it's like, okay, this guy can wrestle, let's give him this mental handicap that he can be a legitimate handicap to him, and this albatross around his neck he can carry around, and it doesn't have a shelf life. I told you that before about a shelf life, like the superhero in training or super, what's her face? I can't remember her name right now.
Nikki, almost
Nikki
a superhero.
Cross. Yeah, to me, it's like, okay, you're setting someone up. Who
legit got a clean win over Charlotte Flair. Okay, and I will say this right now. The happiest of moments for me was seeing her get a clean victory over Charlotte Flair, who I hate. Woo!
Okay, that's fantastic, but what's the shelf life? The queen of wrestling, Charlotte Flair, and her wrestling lineage, that has, staying power. That's going to stick around. And almost a superhero is like, I almost care to watch. Okay? That to me, it just doesn't, it's not going to stick.
It's not.
And so,
well, that's, I agree to an extent, but I will say, just going back to Orange Cassidy.
You want to talk about Orange Cassidy for an hour and a half?
Well, listen, but that's the thing. As a character in AEW, what drew me to AEW was different from what drew me to TNA. TNA drew me to Jeff Hardy. I didn't know where the heck this guy went, where he took off after WWE. So as a wrestling fan, and the first thing that I got to see from a different promotion outside of WCW was seeing Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, like what I was introduced to, Diamond Dallas Page at this point in time, and like, seeing guys that were familiar, and that's what AEW is doing, seeing old WWE guys that were there that I know in this different promotion that I have no idea about and seeing these other guys. Like, that's what works. You know these guys, so they're gonna bring that kind of like bring the eyes to AEW. So it's like, oh hey, I know Matt Hardy, like I know Ric Flair, I know Tully Blanchard, I know all these guys. But then you see guys like Orange Cassidy, and that to me was like the bread and butter of AEW. Is like these guys that they had that weren't the WWE guys are the guys that you want to focus on, that you want to push, that you want to build because that's your household names. Unfortunately, with the amount of talent that's in AEW, with the amount of people, and as we talk about tonight, like all these guys that we're talking, Bray Wyatt being released, where's he going to go? Maybe AEW. Ric Flair, maybe AEW. The next guy we're going to talk about, maybe AEW. My point being is, with all these guys being in AEW, it outshines guys like Orange Cassidy because now, like that thing that me and you have talked about before, the glass ceiling has been made for Orange Cassidy. Like this is a guy that I am entertained by, would love to see be champion just because even though he does all this funny stuff, that's what makes you talk about changing the wrestling landscape. Never in a million years would you see a comedic guy be the WWE champion. But in AEW, maybe you could. And that's what makes them different. Like I'm not talking Rock funny, Stone Cold funny. I'm just talking about Orange Cassidy is just like a comedic relief character to me. But if that guy was champion and then he, like, every time he got chopped, he became serious. So it was part of his gimmick that you get to see the real Orange Cassidy come out. Like, and well, that guy was your champion.
Yourself, though. You just, like, to my point, is there needs to be a sense of seriousness and legitimacy to it. So he has to snap and to have that aspect of his character. That, to me, would make a ton of sense.
But will he is the question. Will they show that they are the Chains of Wrestling, or will he kind of fall in line with everybody else? Like, will that just be his thing? What do you think?
Right. Me personally?
Yeah, like what do you think with that, with Orange Cassidy?
I'm not sure where that's gonna go. Sometimes you run the risk of resting on a character like that, whereas it may be cool now. If he doesn't change, if there isn't a new dynamic to it, then it could get stale, could get old, just like the orange juice sitting in your fridge kind of thing. Like you gotta drink it while the drinking's good. To me, like that's something I always thought that Chris Jericho was good at, was reinventing himself to an extent to make his character not stale. Like give them a different version of Chris Jericho to follow, whether he thinks he's the best in the world at what he does, or he's the Ayatollah of rock and rolla. Or
now he's the Ayatollah of Coca-Cola, because if you see that gut,
or the list, or the Lionheart,
the human highlight reel.
Jay, no, seriously,
save us, save me,
and that's to speak to Chris Jericho's credit and how great he is at reinventing himself. But Orange Cassidy, I guess let's see 2-3 years down the road if everyone thinks that shtick is as funny as it was.
But some characters though that stand up that don't need to change, like is Stone Cold, because Stone Cold changed all these characters. But I think the only one that I could say that I probably enjoyed personally besides Stone Cold Steve Austin is maybe the Hollywood Blondes, because there's some history there once it came up with the Hart Foundation and Brian Pillman, and then just the whole feud with Stone Cold versus Brian Pillman. Like you have the Hollywood Blondes, so like. And there's a tag team that Stone Cold didn't want to be a part of, but ended up enjoying and wanting to stay a part of it, and got broken up despite, something that he came into being like, I want to be a singles wrestler, and then falling in love with the idea that this can work. I could do this with this guy. And then WCW deciding you guys aren't going to be a tag team anymore. And then obviously having to go to like gimmicks like the Ringmaster and having to do his thing through ECW until he finally found himself, at King of the Ring, and Stone Cold was born. Like Stone Cold from that moment on going out. The only things I think that he reinvented was like, when he decided to take up the mantle of leading WCW and ECW, the two companies that did the most dirty to him.
But and sometimes it changes for the worse, because like that whole thing I think was a dud too, the Stone Cold heel turn. I thought when he had the Edge, the 2-man power trip and all that, I thought that was great. And that's really where they were going with it. And the unfortunate side effect of Triple H's injury at that period of time is people do forget that the invasion angle happened and the alliance and all that. But Triple H was on the shelf the whole time that happened. Triple H wasn't there because of that injury.
That's why when he came back, it was like one of the biggest pops. when he came back.
Well, because they're like, oh God, thank God. It was so weird. Again, how can we miss you if you won't go away? Because when he left, he was one of the biggest heels. He was part of the 2-man power trip, and they were beating everyone up with chairs and beating up Lita with a chair and the Hardy Boys and doing all this stuff. And then he gets hurt, and Austin's kind of where he is, you know. And then they're like, oh, well, let's just have Emil do some funny stuff and this and that, and him and Vince's friendship. And then, the old Stone Cold comes back for a week, and then they hit the pay-per-view, and he turns on WWF or turns on WWE, and then he's just like the leader of the WCW ECW alliance. It's just strange. And in hindsight, I'm sure there's a lot about that they would change, whether it's Stone Cold or the writing team or Vince himself.
One of the weird things I found about that is because I got to see it live. So this is before I realized that, like, live events, before like certain pay-per-views, like Survivor Series was one of the biggest, I think, turning points for the invasion when was it Kurt Angle turned on and helped WWF. Like, Kurt Angle was the guy who basically solidified the win for WWF. Kurt Angle, like, it was the steel chair. I got to see the live event for that. So I got to see that whole card, like, live, and them doing the test run for it before they did the actual pay-per-view, like a week or two before they did the pay-per-view. So for me, that's why when I saw the pay-per-view, I was like, I remember Mike Awesome, like, because Mike Awesome came out, and that was like the big thing at the time was Big Show. Mike Awesome comes to the ring, he slides in, Big Show like chokeslams him, pins him 1, 2, 3. It was supposed to be Big Show's first, like, pretty much squash match, like the fastest match that he did, which was Mike Awesome, like, literally cut the music, came to the ring. Once he got in, bell rung, he chokeslammed him, pinned him. That was it. Like, that whole pay-per-view, I remember Undertaker, like, dude, just seeing like the Hardy Boys and stuff in the ring, it was so cool. I didn't realize I was watching an actual, like, dry run of a pay-per-view, though. And that's what's so cool about it, is like, I got to see all the results. And then when it happened, like, that was the thing. Kurt Angle, of all people, like, changed the tide. Kurt Angle. And at this point, like, he's like kind of the comedic relief character. He wasn't the biggest role in the alliance type deal. He wasn't the biggest role in the invasion. Like, he was there as one of the guys, obviously, but like, you had Undertaker, The Rock, Stone Cold, Kane, like, and Chris Jericho, even like when they were Team WWF and they were doing the funniest skits, in my opinion, some of the funniest skits they've ever done, is when they finally put these guys in a room together and they all kind of just like,
and Austin's like, yeah. And
he's slapping Undertaker. Yeah.
Face. Oh my gosh. No. And I was watching this thing saying that moment is like, it was kind of a challenge in the locker room between a lot of the wrestlers to, like, get Undertaker to break character
with the spin-a-rooney and everything.
Yeah. That's just him trying. That's them ribbing Taker and trying to get him to react. And then, like, in true Undertaker form, he just says, like, you do that again, next time you're going to pull back a nub. And Austin's just like, like, back to what he was doing. Like, that, to me, that's so good. Like, and again, like you said, put them all in the room. It's kind of like an ensemble cast, and then they do some funny stuff.
Guys, dude, it's like the Expendables, dude. Put them all in the room, dude, and let's see what your best guys can come up with. Since they're all great at promos by themselves, put all your best guys in one room and just let them go for, like, even just like, what was it, like 30 seconds to a minute would be the thing. But
just to lead that into a point that was being made in the chat too, about, like, establishing things and taking things seriously. Like, the reason they can do a little comedy bit with those characters, and Austin's got the acoustic guitar and he's serenading Vince and stuff, is because they'd already done the work to legitimize themselves as serious entities. They'd already done what was necessary to become a foothold in the sport or in this business, whichever way you want to say it. And so then you can afford to, it's funny to see him do something like that, because we're all human at the end of the day, and sometimes life is funny. But they'd already gone the necessary route to legitimize themselves. And so I think that works. And to me, Orange Cassidy starting out, his first impressions are some of the most important ones. For him to be a comedy thing, it's like, well, where do you go from here? You've committed to this idea. What do you do now? It does need to be evolved and be maintained in a certain way. And it's weird. And then you want to bring in legitimate people like Chris Jericho. When he was first there, it was like, okay, well, Chris can elevate some of these other guys because he's a dude who's been on, people's screens and people know him for the last 20 so years. He can legitimize these people. But unfortunately, because he was happy and content with just getting a big paycheck and and then doing stuff with these guys. Have you ever noticed, like, the only thing, and I want you, if you watch AEW in any consistent format, the only person who takes himself and carries himself legitimately all the time and takes himself seriously is Cody Rhodes. He's the only one. And if you watch it, you'll see that he's like, no, what he does is serious.
Well, he just got attacked by Black when he took off the boots. Like he was insinuating, I'm retiring. He gave the salute, and then he got attacked at the crutch.
But have you ever noticed that Cody, for the most part, has been able to avoid the long-standing feud with Orange Cassidy or Jelly Nutella or
Joey
Marco
Nutella?
Stunt? No, I'm serious. Like Cody just he knows enough about himself and knows enough about wrestling to not coexist or blend himself in with these comedy gimmicks and these things. That's not to say he hasn't at all, but
no,
for the most part, he's trying.
I agree with you because I want to say this. I feel like, and this, I think you're gonna like this because this is actually coming back around even to another thing we talked about, and this is what I'm really excited about. So Cody Rhodes is actually someone I want to talk about. If you look at Cody Rhodes in his career, he's never gotten that main event opportunity that I would say he deserves now. In the WWE, you never really got to see that kind of light of him where you thought he would be a main eventer. And then when he did his own thing, once he left WWE, he finally got that opportunity. I feel like for him, but obviously being the owner, being the biggest piece of AEW, you can't, just win the world title because everybody's just going to look at you just like how when we were running our wrestling promotion, like you can't become world champion and also own the business too because everybody's just big. Oh, this guy's just giving it to himself, and then we already see kind of enough of that with the Elite.
I've been in that position before too. Like
we both have. Me being a moderator, you being an admin, dude.
You have to have the responsibility of making the call without being self-serving. You have to do stuff that's going to elevate everyone around you for the greater good. So,
however,
it's difficult.
If you naturally end up in a situation like a story, a very good story, a very great story that's being told, and you tell it naturally, one way or another, if you get to a situation where that title comes into play, and it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. And for Cody Rhodes to say that this man would be in AEW and to never win the AEW World Title, hey, maybe that's it. Maybe that's his plan. But I feel like there's a bigger plan in store for him, and that plan is, we talked about it. What about a Four Horsemen? And I thought about this, and I thought about it. One of the people that I want to see. So I talked about Adam Page.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about where would he go. I want to see him Four Horsemen. To me, Adam Page is FDR.
Here's the weird, because Cody's so self-aware about his lineage.
Well, so I wanted to touch up on that because that's why I'm getting Cody Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was the original, that was the thing to the Four Horsemen. It was always like Dusty, he wasn't a part of the Four Horsemen. He was the enemy. So and that's the thing. There's Dustin Rhodes and then there's Cody. But Cody being Cody, and that's the best part about Cody. I think Cody's at his greatest when he's a heel. And he's wearing the suits, and that's the thing. Cody's always wearing the suits. He's got the style, dude. He's got the blonde hair. You might see like Dusty, but to me, I see Ric Flair, dude. I see bits of Ric Flair, not the more so, woo, and but just the aggressive Ric Flair. The I mean business. This is my title, Ric Flair. Like Ric Flair in his A game, pulling out all the stops. The Nature Boy, dude. That's what I see. And I see shades of Ric Flair and heel Cody Rhodes with the blonde hair. And Cody Rhodes, to me, is such an interesting dynamic to this Four Horsemen talk, because if Cody Rhodes was to do the one thing that his dad didn't, and that's, it's like poetic justice or maybe injustice. Cody Rhodes, that's the thing. Ric Flair, that's one of the pieces of the puzzle. Is to me, Ric Flair coming into AEW, and this is what I can see with that. Cody Rhodes under his tutelage. The one man who was against, his father, Cody Rhodes, turning basically against his old man by becoming one of the Horsemen would be one of the craziest things.
That's heat. That's heat for sure. Like you said, he's and to my point as well. He's so self-aware of where he came from and his father's legacy and stuff. To do that is a very Hulkster-esque leg drop on Savage at Bash at the Beach kind of moment where okay, but you got to start it out. You got to build it. So you got to do the natural thing. So say Adam Cole comes in, Ric Flair comes in, and Arn and Flair and Tully and JJ it's FTR and it's Adam Page, and they're and then they have some other member.
I thought of Adam Cole. I thought of Adam Cole if he came in, he would be a really good fit too. But I also thought about this too, is that Adam Cole, if you notice that him being the leader of the Undisputed Era all this time, I don't see him with a star packed thing like the Four Horsemen. I don't think it would be a good fit for him. And this is what I see about the Four Horsemen, is that what would be a good fit for them is to somehow, some way get involved with the Elite. And that would be Adam Page versus Kenny Omega. I almost said Johnny Omega. So shout out to a friend's character there. But Kenny Omega and Adam Page, with how hot this is going, if Adam Page was to somehow help FTR, what's already going on in terms of like Tully and Arn and JJ Dillon, where they signal to the FTR, if they were somehow to get involved with Adam Page, and it's the three of them versus the three of the Elite, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Okay, so you got 3-on-3, and then you got like kind of like the Four Horsemen kind of like backing them up, right? Because like say Ric Flair comes in, then and it's like, oh shit, Ric Flair's here, that's sweet. And then it's like, but what if the original Four Horsemen, this is the thing. Adam Cole comes in.
Oh wait, hold on though. Say they're beating them down. Say that, like you're saying, like the Four Horsemen FTR, they're beating down the Elite, right? Just smashing them, and then Cody comes out with a chair or a chain or a pipe, or you know what I'm saying? And the point is like, oh, he's coming to help it, because we all know that they're the what are they, part owners of the company or whatever. You're like, oh, the obvious thing here is that he's going to help them against the Four Horsemen and have this feel good moment, and then to have him turn to do something that costs Kenny the title or something legitimate, something big. To me, that would be very interesting, and I guess we'll kind of see where that goes.
But Cody is not the guy I'm thinking. I don't think Cody's fit for the fourth role. I feel like Adam Cole's way into this whole thing, if he was going to come to AEW, being a part of the Bullet Club, like that's the thing. Him and Cody have both been a part of the Bullet Club, been a part of the Elite. You don't really see Cody with the Elite much, but Adam Cole is somebody who, before he had left, the Bullet Club, like he was hanging out with the Elite. So him to come in, and that's why I was like thinking, oh, Adam Cole going against, because you would think he would go in for the Elite, and all of a sudden this guy turns on him and becomes part of the Four Horsemen. Because the way that this is working is that the Elite are the heels. So the Four Horsemen, the way that they would have to form, or as baby faces, but eventually you would see the real Four Horsemen come out of them, which is the heels. But to get that stepping stone, where it's like, oh man, this is so cool seeing the Four Horsemen and being like the badass faces, would be Adam Cole joins the Elite, super kick party around. But this is the thing. So if it's just FTR and Adam Page at this point, and they're getting attacked by Adam Cole shows up, so it's the 4-on-3. Adam Cole, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega attacking FTR and Adam Page. And the numbers game is gaining against them, so they can't keep up. It's 3 against 4, because like maybe Adam Cole comes out and it's like he's gonna he's gonna get up with Kenny Omega and them, and then he's the guy who turns on Adam Page and FTR to like, all right, the Elite's back, baby. We got Adam Cole, right? And then all of a sudden the Four Horsemen come out because these guys have been hanging out with FTR, and let's just say Adam Page gets involved in this way. And you got the Four Horsemen, dude, with JJ Dillon, dude, coming out to save the day. And then they're getting attacked. And then like Ric Flair's bouncing off and doing a back roll, and he's getting excited, taking his jacket off because he's getting knocked around. And this is the first time this dude's getting a ring, get knocked around since like Batista, dude. And like, so he's getting excited because he's being ragdolled. Same thing with Arn Anderson, because those are two guys that are like older but can go. I wouldn't put Tully or I would put JJ in a ring to get knocked out, but they would be in the ring like they're going to be the next slaughter, the next lambs to the slaughter. But taking guys that are more active like Arn and Rick that will take those bumps and go down for the Four Horsemen, and then it's like, oh no, then it's going to be Tully and it's going to be JJ. That's when Cody Rhodes comes out. And right. Somebody else I want to throw out, Brian Pillman Jr., because as his dad being a part of the Four Horsemen at some point in time, being the fifth horseman, because they talked about that. If they were to do a Four Horsemen, they would actually want to see kind of like a five horseman, like just like throwing another guy in. I think Brian Pillman Jr. is the perfect guy, because he's not like any of those other guys where he's built up like that yet. Like he's not like Adam Cole. He's not like Adam Page. He's not like Cody Rhodes. Like this guy still has like ways to go. He's still young. So I think him being in the Four Horsemen, but under the tutelage of these guys, again, and then having Cody Rhodes with like Ric Flair basically kind of like show him the way, these guys would have the most epic feud with the Elite, And Brian Pillman would be basically the game changer to that. He would be like the fifth guy to the equation that would kind of like really kind of turn the tide for the Four Horsemen to where they could eventually do a heel turn when say the Elite are ready to go face or whatever, and they do their own thing. But the biggest thing is Adam Page and Kenny Omega. These are like the two big things. You know what I mean? Like those are the two big factors right there to make this work, to make it make sense. And then everything else that kind of falls into place would just be so much more cooler to see. Like, dude, I thought about this last night, and I can't stop thinking about sets. If I saw Cody Rhodes in the Four Horsemen, like the new Four Horsemen, it just blows my mind how cool it is. Just how cool that it's like Dusty didn't do it. Dusty was the guy against them. But seeing Cody as the guy with them, and maybe needing Dustin to be the guy to kind of pull him out of it, or even better, for Cody Rhodes to get that world title that he deserves, that opportunity to be that main event.
Soul.
He's basically got to sell his soul, but he does it for a purpose. Here comes true Cody Rhodes. He turns on, when they become heels, Cody Rhodes turns on the Four Horsemen eventually, because you have Adam Page and you have Brian Pillman Jr. and you have these guys. And even like that's where I had Adam Cole in the mix too, because seeing Adam Cole, he's going to want to go for the world title. So a triple threat feud between Adam Cole, Adam Page, and Cody Rhodes. But even then, just taking Adam Cole out of the equation, taking the Elite out of the equation, Cody Rhodes turning on the Four Horsemen, and then it legitimizes the Four Horsemen with Brian Pillman Jr., Adam Page, and FTR. But like having Cody Rhodes being a part of it for its startup, and then being the guy to make this whole thing was just a ruse, and then it's just the perfect payoff, because then it's like he did what Dusty couldn't do, which is join the Four Horsemen, but he did it to be within the ranks and take out the ranks from inside. Like that, dude, blows my mind.
Right. No, and that as far as fantasy booking goes, I think we could kick a few ideas around the writers' room, but it really to something you did want to discuss was the concept of whether it was good for AEW to be signing all of these you don't want to say leftovers, but all this WWE talent, past talent, and kind of what it means to them. Because here we are talking about something, but there's a lot of hypotheticals here, like bringing in Ric Flair or bringing in Adam Cole, or as we already discussed, Bray Wyatt, or whatever's actually in the works.
Because none of this is even stuff that's even on like just like CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. Like none of these things are like officially on the table. These are all hypotheticals, but that's what makes this conversation so great right now, is that if these things were to come into fruition, I would be on board, like 120%.
That answers your own question, though. Is like, is it a bad thing? I don't know. Has it gotten the conversation going? Have I shifted from WWE to AEW, depending on what happens with Punk and what happens with Daniel Bryan or what happens with Bray Wyatt? And again, it might be temporary. It might be semi-permanent. That's the thing that they need to do. That they need to draw in these wrestling viewers, these fans from the WWE, and keep them. That's what AEW would need to do. I can even say this, whereas I've been lukewarm about AEW all this time. The Punk and Daniel Bryan thing, that grabs my attention to an extent. They have not signed anyone else that, even up to this point, that I'm like, that isn't some kind of retread, that isn't some kind of thing I've visited once before, with Matt Hardy or Chris Jericho or anyone, honestly, FTR or Sean Spears, blah, 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 blah. To me, this is the one. And then this is their shot, I think, to really make some noise. And again, I have concerns. I don't know if they can legitimately present a story that will captivate me to be able to ignore how much silliness goes on in the rest of the hour, but it is exciting. We're sitting here talking about it for sure at length. So to me,
at least the potential to AEW, this is the potential.
It can't be a bad thing. I don't think bringing in legitimate talent can be a bad thing, as long as you keep it semi-serious. So to your question about oversaturation, I don't think it's possible. I think you have to have something that works and something that people, are watching consistently first before it can become an oversaturation, like in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, and then ongoing until now, like WWE had. They first had to have this up period where everyone was watching. It was so good, so captivating. So for us to even reflect upon it and say, oh, well, how come it's just not as good as it was before? So you hope for something like that. You hope to be hot enough to make that statement and to have all those eyes on you. And then so people can sit back and say, oh, yeah, the good old days. There needs to be good old days to begin with for you to have that. So I think it'll be a good thing. It just really depends on how they conduct their business. That to me is the most interesting part.
I haven't been more excited than now to talk about this kind of stuff because this is the stuff that I'm a casual fan and I would love to become more invested in AEW because to be honest here, like I'm not your go-to source for AEW because I don't watch it religiously. I'm so casual about it that like what I'm talking about, maybe I'm wrong about stuff. Maybe somebody that does watch it more than I do is watching right now and saying this guy's a joke. I might be to you because you know what? Honestly, I'm on the same table in terms of I will be the first to admit that as a wrestling fan right now, because of the lull period that we're in, the honest facts, like I don't watch like I should. But as somebody who runs a podcast about wrestling, this is the most interesting thing that I could possibly done for myself to reinvigorate myself as a wrestling fan is that just these potential things that could happen and the hypotheticals. But these hypotheticals, if they would happen, even just like 1/4 of what I talked about happened, it would at least pique my interest enough to want to see how that carries out. In a perfect world, dude, if they made these exact moves just like I talked about, and again, the pieces to the puzzle, if Bray Wyatt were to come in and take over the Dark Order, so it forces Adam Page to do something else outside that Dark Order, but keep his momentum going against Kenny Omega, that being the Four Horsemen, it would give evolution to Adam Page's character in terms of what brought him out of the slump that he was in was the Dark Order. But what brought him the success that he deserves is the Four Horsemen. You know what I mean? Like telling that kind of story just kind of, to me, is like the greatest thing to see come out of this. Will any of this happen? Who knows? Adam Cole, what if he signs with WWE again? You know, we don't know. That stuff is not official. Right. So we can't say that.
He's a Triple H guy too, and I don't think they'll just let him walk.
And that's the thing. He is a Triple H guy. He's been one of the hottest things coming out of NXT. Like, there's so much more for him to do besides NXT. And I feel like he hasn't even touched that, that pinnacle yet. He hasn't even gotten into a main room, which is crazy. I feel like they needed him more in NXT because, again, with the ratings war that wrestling fans are doing, like, NXT is the thing that's carrying WWE right now. And for me and you, maybe we're hoping that Raw and SmackDown take that throne again, seeing the guys that they have on there, because that's what it's supposed to be. Okay. When we did our wrestling thing, it was NIWA Breakdown, not NIWA Flashbang that was running the show. And as much as guys wanted to make NIWA Flashbang, that show
and all the competition never did was elevate the overall level of the product. To me, that's how it should be. So NXT should be so good that the people on Raw and SmackDown say, "Oh wow, look what these guys did on this takeover pay-per-view. We really need to bring it.
We got to bring it." But it's quite the opposite. No matter what they try, it's just like this is what people want to see. Is they want to see what's happening in NXT because that is the future. And but they're stuck getting the main show being like things done in the past in the present.
Speaking of things that people want to see, Rick. So for 3 weeks now, our viewers have been waiting for us to reach the end of this tag team list, this top 50 WWE tag teams. And we're down to the final 10. So
the home stretch.
So to me, what they do, hopefully, AEW can do enough, or WWE can do enough to reinvigorate itself, and this competition can be, quality enough for any of these people to reach the top 10 on any top 50 list going forward in time here. But as it stands, we're on to the from 10 to 1 on the greatest tag teams according to the WWE, the very heavy-handed WWE.
I can't believe you're gonna throw this at me right now and make me talk these tag teams, which is just this list has already been debunked 2 weeks ago. But I love the fact that
we're finally getting to the cream.
I love the cream of the crop. We already missed that, dude, with the Mega Powers being on number 12. Yeah, but I've been so invested.
Whatever the heck it was.
Yeah, I've been invested in the hypotheticals that, honestly, my heart's gonna be breaking if I don't see this go down the way it is. But it's also at the same time predictable and to be typical that if it doesn't play out this cool, because that's the thing, you could come up with a million crazy 50 greatest ideas that ever came up in wrestling that they never used. But like your mind is that
missed
much
opportunities. 50 greatest missed opportunities in wrestling. Yeah.
If they don't capitalize on something like this, and this is just coming from me, this is my opinion, not anybody else's. This is not saying that they should, but in my opinion, that if they did this as a wrestling fan, for me, just having history there with the Four Horsemen, if they did this exactly how I see it in my head, dude, I tell you, I would boom. That's what the first thing. So I was interested so much in CM Punk and Dan O'Brien, but with this week, the gears have been changed to these hypotheticals. That's just one more thing that would drag me in because like I'm on board for just CM Punk. I'm on board for Bryan Danielson. Like CM Punk being there alone is big enough for me to want to watch, on a weekly basis, just to see what he's doing. But to see stuff like this, capitalizing.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, continue. You're fine. I was just gonna say, you're saying like, oh, this is how I feel about this and that. But I was gonna say, do you feel the same way about the British Bulldogs?
Before I talk about those guys, the top 10 being, Eric, are you talking like top 10 our favorite wrestlers, or like the best wrestlers in the world? Like, is that the kind of top 10 that you want to see us bring?
Well, he's wondering if maybe say we talk about these top 10 tag teams, and then we would
like do our own version of it. Okay.
Well, we can even say like where we agree or disagree on these, or anyone else outside of the WWE that should be on this top 10. So why don't we dive into it, and then we can
British Bulldogs. I mean, honestly, as far as like the British Bulldog himself, I feel like Davey Boy Smith, I feel like he's probably going to be like it's like Scott and Rick to me. Like obviously he's the one who stands out, who ended up becoming the bigger brother, like the bigger Smith, dude. To me, like how he wrestled. But the British Bulldogs.
Well, with Bulldog and Dynamite Kid, it was a really great mix. Davey Boy was the powerhouse, and then Dynamite Kid was just explosive and hard hitting, and I just think it was a really great mix, and I think that
I feel like for where it was in time, that's what made it exciting. Because like if I was to make my own top 10 about this, or own top 50 greatest tag teams, like maybe I'd list these guys
enough about the British Bulldogs to put them in top 10, because obviously they put them at number 10 on this list, but
that's the thing. Like for me, I didn't get to watch like their matches religiously. I know about the British Bulldogs. I know who the British Bulldogs are. So that it's enough of an impact that they've made in their career to solidify that choice of being top 10, because they are, to me, like when you talk about like old WWF stables and tag teams, like that name is on the list, and there's for good reason. It's not just like some random tag team, Job Squad version 2,
Killer
like
Bees, right?
The Killer Bees, Brooklyn Brawler, and dude, like it's obviously somebody it's forementionable. So to me, I can't rate them any higher or any lower. I feel like them being on top 10, I'm fine with it. I agree with it.
Right. I don't know if they would crack my top 10, again, just based on their body of work and not seen it as much as, maybe in their prime as would be necessary. But you know what? When it comes to a WWE centric list, I don't see any reason why they would be exclusive. Maybe 10 is exactly, it's a tone shift for the list as well. They're like, oh, here's Demolition, who just didn't make it into the top 10 with one of the longest reigns of all time. But here's the British Bulldogs, and you go like, oh, okay, now we're really getting into
I feel like they'd be like top 25, maybe top 20. I'd put up like Bulldogs? 16 list.
No, top 20 in mine, maybe.
Yeah, like my top 10, like there's a lot more guys on this list that I could move down the list, like being Paul London and Brian Kendrick being one of them. Like as a personal choice, like I would move, like the way I'd shift these guys, definitely being top 20. They're a notorious group. You know who the British Bulldogs are, so I feel like they deserve to be on the top 20. But again, top 10. All right, I'll leave them there because of what we're stuck with now. But
right.
If I had it my way, if I had it my way, like Burger King, dude, I'd be pushing them up to 16, probably 16.
Well, here's another one. Here's an interesting thing. Speaking of top 10s, two guys who I would put in probably my top 10, 15 individually, but then make it onto this list as as a group is the Brothers of Destruction. So number 9 is the Brothers of Destruction, and Kane and Undertaker. Of course, they're great. It's just me and you were talking on the rest of this list about like 2 individual guys you put together, Jericho or Miz and Morrison. Well, actually, no, it's a little bit different though. Miz and Morrison are coming up together,
but also think about
Jericho
like this
was 2 established guys.
All the guys that you put together, though, this is the one thing that makes this interesting to me, though. But out of all these guys, this is what makes it my exception to the rule and the trump card, is because all these other guys are 2 singles competitors that became something great, and they're just that great that you fell in love with it, but they were meant to be singles. Right. The Brothers of Destruction were the one thing. Kane is Undertaker's kayfabe brother. So in this aspect of this tag team, this is the most serendipitous. This is what you want to see culminate out of that big feud.
Right. They're at their best when they're together type thing. They've made amends and they, yeah.
So I know exactly what you're saying. And I totally agree like 100% because as what Kane can do as a singles character and what he's been able to prove after WrestleMania 20, when because WrestleMania 20, Undertaker beat him. And it's like when he finally was able to not be the Shadow anymore, and he finally put Undertaker down like multiple times after that. Like that's where Kane finally decided, like he finally showed himself as a character. Unfortunately, I feel like Kane could have done that when he had the mask on originally. To begin with, like Kane to me was never somebody to be overshadowed by the Undertaker, but somebody to match the Undertaker.
They did it to an extent when they lit the casket on fire the first time, and Taker left, and then came back and was like, "I won't face my brother," and this that, and then like I said, he wouldn't face him. Then he swear jar. And then he lit him up in the casket, and then Taker had no choice but to take him down, kind of thing. And then the same thing happened with WrestleMania 20. Like you said, he turned on him. He was the devil's favorite demon. He was like Kane was making his own way, and got out of Undertaker's shadow. But then, of course, Taker comes back and casts one very large looming shadow all the time. So,
like you do, like when it was Taker versus Kane. At that point, you knew it was going to be Taker, especially when it was like this is when Kane was unmasked, and then he first tried like WrestleMania 20. That is a prime example of like Undertaker coming back at WrestleMania 20 as the Phenom. Like this is a big deal, but this is where there's the biggest disappointment for me seeing him in the singlet. I loved WrestleMania 20, but seeing him in at the same time, it was just basically American Badass Undertaker without the headband. So he was kind of cool. But once he did the singlet and went down from there, that's where it kind of digressed for me for him.
For it, like in conclusion on the Brothers of Destruction, I would just say that they're just so dominating as a tag team, and they're just so you just knew that no matter who your tag team was Edge and Christian or any of the other guys in this top 10 list, Kane and Undertaker as a group, them on the same page was so dangerous, so dominating that I could see them in this top 10. I probably would just put them somewhere in the top 20, but again, it's hard to argue.
Me personally, as it just greatest tag teams of all time, any promotion, I definitely agree with that. Like I would put them in like a top 10, top 20. For me, I feel like on a WWE greatest tag team, I would actually put them higher on this list.
Higher? Okay, well we got to visit some of these other guys because a lot of the names, the rest of the names on this list, I would rank higher than them.
How about this?
Just not in the order.
To be fair, looking at the people that I'm looking at, I would put them number 7, and I would move number 7 up for sure. And I'd move actually number 7 probably.
Actually, I'd move 8. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to talk about number 8. One of my favorite tag teams of all time is the New Age Outlaws. Number 8's the New Age Outlaws. And to me, for them to be 8 behind 2 of these more modern tag teams, it kind of kills me because to me,
people are going to hate us for this opinion, by the way. Like where me you are.
They didn't have a bazillion tag team title run or anything like that. What was that?
I was saying people are going to hate us for this one because me and you, our opinions are going to be about the same on these 2 new tag teams on here versus looking at all these other guys. This is going to be like the ageist thing where it's like, here's these old time guys like saying that these guys aren't going to deserve these positions that we're going to name off again with the New Age Outlaws. But somebody else is going to be thinking about this and like, nah, you're wrong, dude. They deserve to be there.
They're going to be USO guys. They're going to be New Day guys, and they're going to say,
might as well just throw it out there. It's Usos and New Day.
Well, we won't tell them where they fall on the list either. And real quick to answer that question in the chat, and then get right back to this before we run out of time here.
To the New Age
tag team match, in my opinion, there's this one. I think it's Edge and Ray versus Eddie and oof. Is it
Was
Kurt?
it Chavo?
It might be Chavo. I might be blending two.
Oh, this is when Edge was doing this thing where like he was tagging with Hogan, he was tagging with Rey Mysterio, like he was doing odd
right.
tag.
I think I'm blending two different tag teams or two tag team matches in my head right now.
It was Eddie Guerrero and Dominic.
No, not at all.
No,
right?
no, it wasn't.
Gemini with Simon P. number 3. So with the New Age Outlaws, without them,
it was Chavo. It was Chavo.
DX would have died.
Rey Mysterio and Edge versus Eddie Guerrero and Chavo.
DX would have died the night that Austin hit Shawn with the stunner and Shawn left. DX would have died without the New Age Outlaws coming in, and like X-Pac would have been cool. It comes in.
Yeah, but there were guys that even when it was just Shawn and Triple H, like when the New Age Outlaws were coming up, those are the two guys that they seeked out. They were like, they wanted to give that extension to them, and then it was kind of like, you know what, these guys are actually, yeah, because they were a similar tag team, just like DX, Raising Hell, and it's like it made sense. And like it would have been awesome to see those guys coming at that time. But the fact that it was kind of like, you know what, these guys are actually really cool without us. Like they don't really need DX that's why the New Age Outlaws were such a great thing. And then when Shawn ended up leaving, you know, it ended up working out anyways, and they ended up joining DX.
And that's why X-Pac always came out to the DX music, or his version of the DX music. And the New Age Outlaws had their own gimmick, their own thing outside of DX. And then we got hurt later. And then they put Road Dogg and X-Pac together. They kind of became the DXB team, where they were like Triple H's henchmen. And I was kind of like, meh. Like I miss Billy, and I can't believe I'm saying, you know, I miss Billy Gunn to some effect, but I did. It's just like, dang, you know, the comment, whatever it is about Billy Gunn and Road Dogg separately.
Well, it's the same that you can say about Billy and Chuck.
They're not to say lackluster, but they just don't have the shine. And then to have Billy Gunn and Road Dogg together as the New Age Outlaws, it just is a different entity. And to me, I would rank them higher on this list. They'd be close in my top 5. So
let me ask you then, because you mentioned Billy Gunn. So what disappoints me? Where's Billy and Chuck on this list?
No, I'm not even going to justify that. Not only because we don't have time, but because we shouldn't. We should move on to number 7.
Can we, how quick do you want to make number 7? Because I can talk about it right now, what I enjoy about them, and it's taken them. How long have they been in the WWE? Hold on. How long have the Usos been in the WWE?
Long time.
May 24, 2010. So you're talking about a team that's been in the WWE since 2010. 10 years, dude. And I've only liked them for about 3 months. This whole thing with
promos.
Yeah, like literally what they're doing right now with the head of the table and Roman Reigns. I like what they're doing now because it's because that's like, to me, those guys. If I ever see Luke Gallows do one of those faces again,
we gotta say out loud for the graphic number Usos.
The Usos, yes. So number 7 being the Usos.
No, number 7.
What they're doing right now. No, it's though it should be over the Usos. Make your man.
USOS Usos.
Uso making me crazy. I hate that they say Us. I don't care for them as like they've never been entertaining to me. I've never enjoyed watching the Usos. I've always just felt like they were kind of like, to me, this is honestly, and this is a hard criticism because Paul London and Brian Kendrick, as much as I love them, and I can see how people might feel the same way about the Usos, like they can wrestle. It's not to say that they can't wrestle at all. That they're just two guys that wear cool looking attires that are twins, like the Bellas, like who can't wrestle, but like they have talent. But that's the thing; their characters, like I still don't know which one is which.
If Jimmy Uso was walking around with that ass like Brie Bella, I'd be like, I'd watch.
Yeah, but
that's not a swear jar one, right? That ass. No, it can't.
No, but okay. But for me, it took the Usos changing the color of their hair for me to understand which one was which. Like that's how much they don't mean nothing to me because they're twins and they get lost in the shuffle, like how like the Bella twins did. Like, oh, one can just switch out the other one.
Well, you do have to give them credit though for the fact that they have.
I gave them all the credit they deserve
together as a team, like a legitimate tag team. Because we've gotten four teams into this list, and some of them have been mashups that were just better together than they were apart, kind of thing, or as good together or dominating together. But like
the only credit they
are just a legit tag team.
What was that? The only credit they deserve is what I just gave them.
What, their haircut when they cut their hair, and you could
No,
differentiate them?
that what they're doing right now in these past 2 months with the whole Edge thing and the head of the table and Roman.
Their feud with the New Day. I remember that distinctly.
All right, guys. But I am being very biased right now. I'm just letting you know that I am being very biased. So do not take my opinion as fact, because what I'm saying doesn't necessarily.
I don't even know if I would put the Usos in my top 20.
They wouldn't be in my top. They would be top maybe at WWE, maybe top 45.
But we're just being, again, there's some bias involved.
Grouchy. We're being grouchy and
not
old.
Grouchy. We're just being biased because I just don't think.
Well, if you think about the last 10 years that these guys have been here, name a better tag team that was active
than the Usos
in the last 10 years in WWE.
The only other one that's on this list, the only one that's better is coming down on this list, as well as the Highlanders, to JT Heat's point. The Highlanders.
But weren't the Highlanders?
We're gonna get to.
Were Highlanders? They were 2010. I thought they were 2009.
I'm kidding. I don't care about the Highlanders.
Listen, the Highlanders were the original War Raiders, dude.
Womb Raiders.
Yeah. Okay, that's the thing. That's the thing. So the only two modern teams, you don't have the War Raiders, the Viking Raiders on here. You don't have anybody else. The only two teams that are on this list from modern in the last 10 years are the New Day and the Usos. So you're going to tell me that those two teams alone, you could say that they carried the WWE in tag teams, but the tag team division has honestly sucked.
Right. Well, yeah, you're saying you're the best by default because you're one of the only legitimate tag teams.
It's not even fair at that point. So these guys the War Raiders that get shoved down, or what about even AJ Styles and Shaquille O'Neal over there? You got these two guys over here, one big guy, one little guy. Talk about those kind of tag teams. They're singles.
Carry anything to at least semi.
And that's the thing that what bothered me about Money in the Bank is that the War Raiders are a legitimate tag team, but lost to AJ Styles and that other guy. And as you talk about, AJ Styles and that other guy are singles competitors coming together versus a team that hasn't even gotten that push yet, that are a legitimate tag team, but they got buried to these guys to put them over, to make them look strong and whatnot. But it's then what's the point of having the War Raiders around? What's left for them to do?
Right.
If they're getting jobbed out
you need to let them be legitimate and, let them.
There can be only one, by the way. If you're going to make a Highlander reference, there can be only one reference in the time that we have.
Well, there can be only one more on this list, and we'll just save the top 5.
Well, why?
For next week.
We don't know, because we got plenty.
We got 3 minutes and 6 teams. You can talk about them for 30 seconds apiece.
So the next. Well, no, the next show is at 9:00, so we can at least get through this is the best part. We got all the time in the world to at least finish. I won't say all the time in the world, but we at least have enough time to be able to do this list.
People in production to start sweating if you tell them, we got all the time in the world.
Do you guys want? By the way, thank you, Ron, and thank you, Eric, as always, our host for hosting this. We don't get to say it enough during every episode. Sometimes we forget, but if you need to know and you haven't heard, these guys are what make the show. They help us out in many ways. You got your boys down here. They're doing the graphics for us. They're making sure that we don't have to have a mouthful of things in my mouth to say. Follow my Twitch, follow their Twitch, follow. They're keeping the show going where I don't have to get all bubbly up and get all frantic and whatnot, frazzled. The word. But see, that's the thing. Eminem's not even on this list. That's what bothers me. Eminem's not even on this.
They were.
No wait. Oh yeah. They were higher. They were higher on this list.
Much higher.
My bad. Okay.
I think they ranked Miz and Morrison higher than Eminem, if I remember right, but I don't.
Mm. But I will say, just to wrap up the Usos or whatever, and that, so we can move on to number 6. If this ever refreshes again, we'll see. The Usos, I'm not going to discredit them for the last 10 years for what they've done as a tag team. If you're going to put them in this list and you're going to be unfair about it and put them at number 7 over all these other guys, you might as well, because between the Usos and the New Day, there's nobody else that really had that much of hype behind them as a tag team, and War Raiders included. Unfortunately, these guys, even the Wyatt family, if you're gonna put these two guys on this high of the list, then there you go. Those were the two teams that were basically the John Cena and Randy Orton of the last 10 years that you were forced to care about because there was nobody else. So that's the thing about
legitimate thing. But it does speak to the legitimacy to be able to be legit, to stand out in this this blurry crowd of forgettable tag teams, that it counts for something.
It does.
Genuinely, it does to actually be someone I go, oh, I know who that is. And because you went the War Raiders, I couldn't tell you who that is. I know that there's those guys. I remember like the Revival. I remember who they are. I remember who DIY is. I remember, geez.
Wow, DIY wasn't even on this list, but maybe it's because they're part of NXT. I don't know.
They were on this list. They were on this list.
DIY was?
Yes. We talked about him.
Nah.
I thought they were
okay, never mind.
40.
Number 38. Okay, so that's weird. They had a way better. That's the thing.
No, and those other guys too. The who were the two guys who the two big guys in like flat jackets?
Authors of Pain.
Yeah, those guys. See, I remember them slightly, but once they hit the main roster, right? Yeah, the Ascension. There's a perfectly good example. They hit the main roster and they just
they ascended to heaven, dude. They ascended to heaven and they
descended to hell. I can't tell which.
The brothers of destruction. The brothers of destruction dragged them to hell.
Hell, right. No, and even they did a burial of the Revival by DX and stuff. They just like they've got they wonder why we are like, oh, the New Age Outlaws and DX and blah blah blah, and we so fondly remember these old guys because they did such a bang up job of making sure that anybody who was new was just delegitimized by someone, you know, from the old guard. It's like, oh, of course the Attitude Era is better. Of course the DX is going to smack this tag team around because they're DX and the Revival's just the Revival. They just like
shot the 13th reunion of DX, brother.
You know, it's like that meme where what's his name shoots Hannibal Buress in the chair. It's like WWE. And it's like DX shoots the Revival and goes, well, how come nobody cares about our tag team division? Because you killed them. On some retro Raw episode for fun. Like, anyway, speaking of
if you wanted a retro tag team to shake up the new division if both members were alive, God rest their souls. Number 6 being the Legion of Doom. Rush. Yeah, dude. These guys, okay, as far as number 6 goes, I legitimately, this is one tag team that I enjoy that are older tag team because these are just two big brute men, just big meaty men, just slapping me.
Ass beaters. It's like the APA to me. Seriously, the APA always gave me Legion of Doom vibes because they're just two big meaty dudes pounding on people. You know what I'm saying? Just beating you up until you can't go no more. And like, oh, it's fantastic. Legion of Doom, they're obviously classic, the Road Warriors, as they were known, you know, in the AWA and all that stuff. To me, what is there to say that hasn't been said? The Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal.
Well, okay, how about this? This one is the obvious one. Would they be on your top 10?
Oh, absolutely.
Where would you put them?
Probably. Oh, man, it might just be at number 6 because for me, you got the Outlaws. Some of the other names on this list. And
if you take out number 1, technically that would make them the top 5.
Right, but I would slide the New Age Outlaws up too. So the problem becomes, you know what I mean? Like it's very interesting. They would crack the top 5 most likely. Of course they would. It's the Legion of Doom.
It's hard too because like that's the thing. You're comparing New Age Outlaws to Legion of Doom. You can't because Legion of Doom were again a word that I love that you said. Was
I don't know if that's Ron or Eric in the chat, but I want you guys when you see Hawk and Animal next time, you tell me that the word meaty doesn't come to mind when you see these beefy dudes out here laying lumber on all these dudes.
I talked Legion of Doom with Heidenreich last week, dude. that was a tag team, baby. Animal and Heidenreich.
I just saw this list recently too that was like tag teams that secretly hated each other or whatever. It's like Animal hated working with Heidenreich. So whatever.
I think even Undertaker hated working with Heidenreich.
No, and again they did the Legion of Doom dirty. And that was something, you know what? Legion of Doom gave New Age Outlaws their rub when they shaved Hawk's mohawk and put him through tables and all this stuff. And like you're just like, whoa, they really took it to him. And that, you know, that helped legitimize the New Age Outlaws. And so maybe I'd have to put Legion of Doom and I would have to put them above the New Age Outlaws because without the Legion of Doom and without New Age Outlaws having to get over on them, maybe the New Age Outlaws wouldn't even be what they are.
It was like Shawn and Triple H with having Sergeant Slaughter. Like there was that one authority figure that wasn't Vince McMahon, that was somebody who was a wrestler of the past, and the president coming on and wearing the spit shields and just being disrespectful to the older traditional wrestlers. Like I think that's the same thing. Legion of Doom, Sergeant Slaughter, they were both on the same pay-per-view when we watched SummerSlam. You know what I mean? We watched SummerSlam 93, and it's like, I think that was a big thing. Oh, sorry, it's 91. Was it 91 that we watched?
91.
SummerSlam 91. So when we watched SummerSlam 91, there's Sergeant Slaughter, Legion of Doom. They were both on that pay-per-view. So it's like these guys are all of the old tradition. And then you talk about guys like New Age Outlaws and DX. That kind
the difference between poking fun at Sarge when he's the commissioner and poking the bear that is the Legion of Doom is like, that's the thing that should have happened. You don't want to do that, dude. The thing that should have happened, though, is Legion of Doom should have came back and pounded the New Age Outlaws into paste, at least once or twice, because that's what you want for the faces. You want them, they get it, and then the bad guys, these smarmy or weaselly heels get their comeuppance. Yeah.
Yep, they get the comeuppance because that's a good story how to tell.
And
I
don't even need Ron to use the word meaty. I just need him to remember the word meaty. I just need it to be ingrained in his brain when he sees the Legion of Doom in the future.
Because with our Money in the Bank winner, Big E, his biggest thing with the New Day was big meaty men slapping meat, dude. And they would wrestle. And his big thing is he wants to face Goldberg. Goldberg should have faced Lashley. If Goldberg becomes champion, it will make our big meaty men collide, and then Big E can have his big meaty moment.
Jeez. And then the Legion of Doom can roll over in their graves.
So moving on, might as well, to number 5, since I think we said all that we could about Legion of Doom. Badass team. They deserve where they're at, spot-wise. How about this team?
If not higher. And it really depends on, who else is on the list.
For all the people on this list.
Any top 10 around, I'd say.
Any top 10 around, absolutely, unanimously. But for the next 5 people that we're about to mention, well, besides number 1, the next 4 people we're about to mention, I will say their spots are pretty legit to me. But I would actually probably switch 2 or 3 and 4, and obviously 2 and 1, like bump 1.
So this next one we're about to talk about,
there's my first square in the jar.
Yeah, oops. You almost made it. An hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes.
Bro, just playing sweet tea.
I would say, here's what I'd say. Number 5, what we're about to talk about, I would move them to number 2 because they do rank that high on my list. So go ahead.
Honestly, I think maybe so. That's kind of a good point that you make.
Oh, I forgot to do during number 6. I was gonna go, yeah, the Legion of Doom. We're one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Tell them, Hawk. And then you go, well.
So there you go. Well, we did it. So we got there. We got it out.
So now my brother, testify.
The Dudley Boys or Team 3D, whatever version of the Dudley Boys you want to call them, they're number 5. And unfortunately for Devon, dude, out of all the cool stuff that they've ever done, the one thing that's going to be most memorable for me now is Enzo Amore telling that he's going to put his lazy eye back to work.
Oh my gosh, you better stop.
Okay,
don't disrespect Devon Dudley like
Brother
that.
Devon, testify.
And because we didn't even make that the thing. What was something we should have been talking about as well during this is something that makes a great tag team is a great finish. And the Dudleys have one of the greatest tag team finishes of all time.
What's with the 3D? One of the number one things to do in a pool with your best, and you got somebody else 3D. There. You 3D them. 3D them. That's what we did my nephew last week.
Us as wrestling fans from the late 90s, we all know if someone throws it up exactly.
We lost him.
What it means.
Oh, we're getting him back.
When you see a wooden table at any point in your life, you're immediately going to think of the Dudley Boys.
So you missed like a whole good portion of that, but we got like when you throw up this, you know what it means?
Oh, no, 3D. I was going to say when someone throws up this, we all know it's going to be a 3D. But the other part, no, that's this or this for John Cena. But the original, whenever you see a wooden table, you immediately think of the Dudleys. And you're just oh, yeah.
Every time he went for the diving headbutt off the top, dude, yeah, dude.
No, to me, the Dudleys, great finish, and that's to the Legion of Doom as well. I want to say that the Legion of Doom had a great finish. The Doomsday Device is one of my all-time favorite tag team finishes. It probably top 2 right there with the 3D. So
I honestly I would switch them with number 2 or number 3 on this list, or sorry, number 4 on this list, Edge and Christian. But I liked Edge and Christian more in terms of gimmick wise, from the Brood to breaking out from the Brood. Like basically, them, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys, best 3 tag teams in the WWE. And my personal top 5 tag teams, I would say definitely those 3 are on the list for Universal. I'd obviously include the Murder City Machine Guns on that list, but still
3D
top
Doritos
5.
did make a return. They didn't do nacho cheese for some reason. So
and they were weirder shaped, and and they didn't have the Dudley Boys on them, so it just didn't feel right.
So tough luck, right? Oh, imagine if they did 3D Doritos as Devon and Bubba Ray in the glasses just sitting on the cover.
Oh yeah,
that'd be fantastic.
So that's the thing with these 3 tag teams, because it's weird where you could put them. You could switch any one of these guys around on a list, and it would be fair. Like for some people, be like, oh well, the Hardy Boys deserve to be number 1. Other people would feel like the Dudley Boys or Edge and Christian. Mm-hmm. Either way, between these 3 teams, they all created magic together, and that's the TLC. They all did something together that unanimously puts them in the top 3.
Right. No, to the point in the chat too, they wouldn't be top 3 if they didn't have each other, and that's true.
Yeah.
You have to have this team. That your
favorite tag team was Andre the Giant,
right? His left and right fists, right?
No. It was the crutches he had before his last appearance at SummerSlam 91, dude. Those crutches were his tag team.
So, to your point, Rick, are we moving on to Edge and Christian, or is there anything else to say about the Dudleys? Because here's the reason I'd move the Dudleys to number 2 is that not only in a WWE list, but you have to realize the Dudleys were the TNA champions, the ECW champions. They were, I can't remember if they held the WCW tag titles when they were there, when the titles were up for grabs briefly. But they've been anywhere and everywhere and consistently, a great tag team, Hall of Fame worthy. Yeah, exciting, and the gimmick is there. Even when they gave Bubba the stutter, he owned it, went for it. When they
didn't have the WCW titles, but so this is an interesting thing for me though, is that the Dudley Boys were IWGP Tag Team Champions twice. Mm-hmm. So All Japan Pro too. That's crazy.
No, they've been everywhere, man.
Oh yeah, they've been everywhere. But as far as the teams to hold something. When I see a wrestler that holds an IWGP title, to me, being like one of the people that have held the same titles are the Murder City Machine Guns. So seeing that's where I put that special. So the Dudley Boys to have done the same thing and captured the same kind of thing actually kind of makes them more legitimate to me over Edge and Christian, because IWGP is not something that goes.
Edge and Christian held this. Edge and Christian held the same tag titles, however many times, 9 times or whatever. I see what you're saying. And that's why the Dudleys, to me, for Edge and Christian, it's a WWE list, so give it to them. But on an all-time tag teams list, the Dudleys have to be ranked higher for sure.
I agree. And Edge and Christian, there's not really much I actually have to say about them other than I didn't really enjoy Edge by himself. I did, but at the same time, it's taken me till now. I love Edge now, but when Edge was a heel, I was sour grapes with Edge and Lita. The whole thing soured it for me for Edge. I didn't really follow him like I used to. Edge face run where he teamed up with Hogan and then he teamed up with Ray, where he was solo then, and he was still coming out to Never Gonna Stop. That's my Edge, dude. That's where Edge solo career wise was. Christian, at Last Year on Your Own, dude. One of the coolest things ever was Christian's breakout, having the long hair and then going short hair. Christian Cage,
Christian Cage. That's the thing. Edge and Christian were so good at different times separately, but Edge and Christian, ENC, they're the antithesis to my point about tag team finishers. By the way,
I'm listening.
Where I don't think Edge and Christian ever had a definitive tag team finish that I can think of. Like the Dudleys and the Legion of Doom.
Well, that's the thing. They didn't really have the Swanton Bomb and the Twist of Fate. And even then, you could even to an extent. What makes Dudley Boys cool and should be over them is that because their tag team and finisher involved both of them doing the move. together. Hardy Boys, it was more so Twist of Fate into the Swanton Bomb, but you had cool things like Poetry in Motion, but the finisher was Twist of Fate and the Swanton Bomb. That was the finisher. But is that as cool as one guy picking one guy up and the other guy dropping him with a cutter? I don't know. I think that honestly,
elevated cutter.
And going through a table, because that was the thing. It was always like it made it like you had the table. So like to me, Edge and Christian, I would put them in my list like number 3, Dudley Boys number 2, Hardy Boys number 1, or maybe you could even flip.
I might slide Edge and Christian out of the top 5. Put them at 6, Outlaws 5, Legion Doom 4. Like I said, Dudley's at 2. We'll continue. Let's continue with Edge and Christian. Again, fantastic. Seeing them together is awesome. Now and then, I think that that you had to have, like, you wanted to root for the Dudleys, you wanted to root for the Hardys, so you had to have these shitheads, that you wanted to see get beat up, and Edge and Christian played that role perfectly. Because it's so funny as we talk about these TLCs, but you know who went over more often than not in all of those TLCs and all those tables?
Like Edge and Christian?
It was Edge and Christian. They always went over. And so without that, I don't think, to the point in the chat too, it's like they needed each other, but I think the Hardys and Dudleys needed Edge and Christian as well. So
yeah, because they were both like the more like hardcore guys. Like that was the thing. They were more hardcore. Edge and Christian were kind of like to balance that out. They were also hardcore. Edge has one of the most memorable spots, spearing Jeff Hardy off the tag team titles. And you talk about when they all 4 of them climb up on the ladder, like all 6 of them climb up on the ladders and they were fighting. Like a lot of these guys did a lot of innovative things with ladders, chairs, tables, you name it. But like having 2 hardcore teams like that, like the Hardy Boys just sacrificing themselves on the line, and then like the Dudley Boys just being that hardcore aggressive group, having the gimmick that Edge and Christian had, which was these cocky heels, really made it entertaining, because these were the guys that were taking advantage of these guys being stupid. Like Jeff Hardy, I'm gonna go flip off this ladder. Oh, I'm unconscious, and then Edge is like, well, I'm not unconscious. I'll go grab that bell. Or Christian, like, I got it.
No, the opportunists. I know what you're saying. Like they're
the ultimate opportunists.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's what
credit where credit's due. Edge and Christian could go in any top 5.
But in terms of skill or whatever you want to call whatever that is, because the Hardys were just spot monkeys. Like, come on, Jeff Hardy just jumping off stuff.
No, get out of here. Just spot monkeys. But
no.
Innovators of offense. Man.
They are innovators of offense, but a high flying offense where that's like going to be the only thing they do for the next like 20 years, except for Matt because of his spine to ass ratio.
So speaking of.
One group that's not a part of this conversation is the Hart Foundation, which is number 3. Number 3. Yeah.
Yep. The Hart Foundation, it's fantastic. Again, it's that mix of power and finesse. You got Brett and Anvil. It just works. Honestly, it's one of the first. It's like the prototype for a lot of like tag team success in the future. And again, to tag team finishers, they had the heart attack where Anvil picks him up in like a reverse atomic drop position, and then Brett comes out, hits the ropes, hits him with like a clothesline, and then just like Anvil drops him like a sack of
that move gives me a heart attack.
I'll use the word potatoes. Of course, Jimmy Hart. See, that's a part of the Hart Foundation that gets kind of unspoken. They were great in the ring, but you also had Jimmy Hart on the megaphone outside, hyping him up.
Which is good for him too, because it's one of the few tag teams. He's managed so many teams, but one of the teams that the Hart Foundation, dude, Jimmy Hart being part of the Hart Foundation, to me, like that was like one of the best teams that he's managed, because it was about Jimmy hyping up. What was it? The natural disasters, dude. It wasn't that like to me.
Right. No, and Jimmy, sometimes they've tried to they thought Jimmy could legitimize the team, but the point is like the Hart Foundation was so good, and them working in synchronicity, that's what made it work. It's not, you can't just bring Jimmy Hart in on the megaphone and
can you imagine a Hart Foundation where like Bobby the Brain was like the brains behind it, like instead of Jimmy? Like that would be a more focused, more serious Hart Foundation. Maybe. Like what they could have done as heels with like the guys like Bobby the Brain, but that's another what if for another time.
Right.
But is there anything more that you want to say about them? That's the thing about Hart Foundation. Being a Shawn Michaels boy, being all that, like I didn't follow the Hart Foundation like I followed Stone Cold and like I followed Shawn Michaels. So unfortunately for me, I have a little bit of a bias there, because to me, I I walked with Shawn Michaels, and ever since then, to me, Bret Hart's career wasn't really idolized like you would have with like a lot of Canadians, especially like one of the Canadians that is in this chat probably would pick Bret Hart's side just because he's Canadian. But I don't get me wrong, Bret Hart definitely working class. I feel like, unfortunately for him, what bit him in the ass was his traditional style. Just made him more of like one of those less gimmick characters, less entertaining to me because he could go 50 minutes, 60 minutes, but I don't care. I don't care. He didn't have the it factor that drew me in when I was younger. Like when I was like my attention span being 8 and 7 at that time.
Right.
He wasn't doing it for me.
You needed Bret to hit a moonsault, so you could get your attention. I get
it. So
number 2, but it's something that we can with Bret and Anvil as well. The Hart Foundation. I was just gonna say they're in any top 5. Maybe not mine. They might get squeaked out somewhere at number 7. But I think
I still feel like they'd be a top 10. Though. To not discredit them, they would be a number 10. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think that they're a bad tag team. It's just they're not my.
I like how
top
for number
5.
2, Rick, we've tried to not talk about them as much as we can in the lead up to talking about them, and so it's like, what is there to say for number 2 here, which is
the Hardy Boys, Team Extreme, which was Team Extreme was the Hardy Boys with Lita. So let's be real here. So Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy, and Jeff Hardy. Team Extreme, Matt Hardy, Lita, and Jeff Hardy, which to me was honestly one of the coolest things ever. The addition to Lita to the group. I mean, these guys have they won all the gold. They won all the gold. That's to me hands down by default. The fact that they've won WCW gold, they won all. Oh my god, dude, they won Ring of Honor gold. Like, I love the Hardy Boys. Even to this day, they got one of the biggest pops when they came out at WrestleMania. Was it 34 when they returned?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy, and like that's to me like they deserve to be number 1 for me in my list. I don't know. That's kind of hard because I would put Mercy Machine Guns, but regardless, number 1 as far as like the tag teams to go.
There's no way you could put the Murder City Machine Guns on any list.
Murder City Machine Guns would be number 2 for me because the Hardy Boys were the original tag team for me. They're what like when I was watching them, they were cool. When I got the action figures, the flex belly ones with the pants, those were the cool guys that I was picking up. I wanted Jeff Hardy, dude. Jeff Hardy was like my favorite wrestler, dude. And that's that's why to me they would stay number 1 because even though like now I would be Jeff Hardy isn't as good as he used to be. Whatever, that's age. Like if they came out,
that's Father Time beat Jeff Hardy up as well as many ladders, tables, and high spots. Like, so of course Jeff's not going to be all that.
Yeah,
and
like,
to me,
and Matt Hardy's not going to do it either. But
they're such innovators of offense. They're such innovators of style. And how they look. Their way about them in the ring, and that Daredevil, nature and stuff. It all just worked, and you wanted to.
What were you doing off of your roof onto a trampoline?
Always, either that or the 5-star frog splash. So,
I mean, yeah, already dude, like respect where respect is done, but like, dude, at least once if you're gonna jump off something high, the first thing you think of is I gotta do that. I gotta do the Swanton bomb, baby. I gotta do it. Swanton bomb. Or you could be Matt Hardy and you're like, I'm gonna do the leg drop instead because I don't want to kill myself. Like doing a Swanton bomb, dude, overextended. Yeah.
So the Hardys, either right where they're meant to be or number 1 for me, if anything. Them
absolutely.
So I think they're right where they belong. So that leads us to number 1. Maybe not as much to say about number 1 as anything, but this is it. We finally made it to number 1. Congratulations.
We don't have to do this next week. No more.
Oh no, wait. You know what? Why don't we just wrap it up here and we'll just do number 1?
Yeah. We can wait for number 1 for next week if you want.
Just kidding.
We'll do it. The New Day.
Number 1.
The New Day.
New Day.
One of the greatest things I want to see out of the New Day is this split. But
oh no, come on.
No, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean because if anything that you're gonna do with the New Day, the best. I don't know. what they've done is kind of like the John Cena way, where like some people would want them to go heel, and one of the things was they wanted to see the New Day turn on each other and fold in on each other, because that's what you do with a faction, like you've seen with DX. Like certain factions fold in on each other because of egos. So it's like it only makes sense for a storyline wise to want to see like Big E versus Kofi, or Big E, or what about Xavier Woods versus Kofi? Like he blames him for why the tag team didn't work. Like it's just something natural that you want to see happen, but maybe it's better off that it doesn't, because these guys being real life friends and being as close as they are, and together, all three of these guys came up together in the struggle and made something great out of that struggle. So to give New Day their due, being number one on this list, I'm fine with it because it happened. Okay, if I could change it, I would. But the New Day, you gotta give them credit. These are three guys that were given something that was supposed to be nothing, and they made something out of nothing.
Guys who maximize their potential there for sure. They did as much as they could, and in respect is due here. I think that the New Day is great. It's very interesting to have this kind of Freebird-esque 3-man team. It's more of a stable than a tag team, but I think it's cool. I think it's innovative. They've popped me a million times, and that's what you asked for. From the costumes to the what you want to call a gimmick or whatever. Being weird isn't necessarily
pancakes. But to be the default, to be number one, I don't agree with. Being the default stable or whatever, because there's nobody else around, being the default isn't always what makes you number one. Maybe it does by default, but on this list, not for me.
Right.
Like, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to discredit them. I'm just going to say that I feel like that as a New Day, they did a lot for tag teams, but on a greatest 50 tag teams of all time, I don't think they're the greatest tag team of all time.
Right.
That's
and with that, though, we should pat out this tag team on the back for making it through with minus 2 minutes to spare. Mm-hmm. So tell them where they can find us, Rick.
If you want to find us next week at 7 p.m. Eastern, that whatever time that they're going to give us, 8 p.m., whatever, you can go follow us at The Wrestling Den on Facebook. You can go find us at Wrestling Den TM on Twitter. You can go find us and watch us at Sports Unfolded on Facebook and YouTube. We got Spotify. We got Google. We got Anchor. You can listen to us if you don't want to look at us. You can listen to us, but why would you not want to look at this savage? Macho Man Ricky Savage, yeah. And Nikolai Jerkoff, yeah. We tag team partner, yeah. So please.
We'll keep working on that nickname.
We'll keep working on it, but we do appreciate you guys coming out. We do appreciate Ron, Eric, for giving us this time to be able to get a full 2 hours in, baby. Get a full 2 hours in to talk wrestling with you guys. Can't wait to do it again next time. You'll see us again on Thursday. Next Thursday, we'll have some more interesting stuff for you. But until then, you guys take it easy.
Peace.
Macho Man Ricky Savage says good night.